So, Jeff, again, getting into the practical side of the business, I want to talk about the importance of distinguishing between the regulatory rules and requirements that we sometimes have around things like annual reviews vis-a-vis the relationship side of that. I think all too often we get caught up on what do the rules say, what do the regs say, but expand upon how advisors should really be thinking about the relationship side of things and how the regulatory things get taken care of as a byproduct of just doing well.
I would agree 100% in that as a part of what we do, yes, that technical piece of review is important, but it's also important to recognize that's when we find out what's changing in this client's lives. As you think about a review, I really think about three things being accomplished. First and foremost, discussion of how whatever we've put into place is operating. And that could mean a lot of different things. That could mean actual performance. It could be actual relevance or how that relevance may have changed. But again, whatever's been put into place, how is it serving and continuing to serve the client's goals? Secondly, one of the reasons that I think an annual review is so important is because it makes sure the client's staying on track. They're doing the things that they should do, the assignments, if nothing else, that we've given them along the way. It's just as easy to think in terms of not achieving your goal for failure to follow a plan as anything else. So we're keeping them on task. The third piece is recognizing that this is our opportunity to ensure that we understand all the ways their lives have changed. One of the things I think is critical to remind our clients periodically is sometimes their situation changes voluntarily because they've made a decision to do something different, but sometimes it's involuntary because the rules have changed, the laws have changed, and it's important for us to be able to know how those things impact them so we can bring them the information they need to make the right decisions.
So, Linda, again, back to neuroscience and back to the whole process of behavioral economics. I'm thinking about this annual review, and one of the big conversations that we often get into is how are we progressing towards some goal? But there's still the propensity of the individual client to fall back into mental accounting. Are there some tips or are there some ideas that you could offer as part of this annual relationship review to help ensure that we always stay focused on the goals and not just falling back into the mental accounting bucket?
Absolutely. One of the beauties of our industry right now, and we're in a time of, I think, great and very positive change. You think about a higher fiduciary standard, for example, for a lot of clients. You think about the tools, eMoney and MoneyGuide Pro and some of the other tools that are available to us, that we really are existing in an atmosphere of goals-based planning. And when it comes to the annual review, we're in a very, very different situation. The client who, for example, only sees us as an investment counselor because that's the mental accounting box they put us in. And remember, we've talked about insurance is over there someplace else, saving for the vacation home is another place.
Sure.
When we put all of that together, it changes the annual review and helps the client get a much more comprehensive picture of what their actual overall progress to goals might be. So as you sit down to prepare, we're going to recommend an 8-step process. The first step, as you probably could guess, is preparation on your part. And when we start to reveal what the other 7 steps are, I think you're going to see that preparation is absolutely critical. This is not a meeting that you can wing. Because when you actually sit down with the client, the first thing that you're going to do is review their progress toward their goals. Now, this is really different. It doesn't sound it, I think, in a lot of ways, but it's really different from the classic annual review where we usually talk about, well, where are you doing vis-a-vis the S&P? How are you, how are you doing against a particular benchmark? When we think about the client journey, and you probably remember the A to B to C, when you think about the client journey, how are we making progress toward those goals that in our previous meetings, you and I have decided are really the important things to look at. In a time of market volatility, this can be wonderful for both the advisor and the client. Let's say that you've got a client who's got 10 years to retirement or to needing money for a college education, and their investment portfolio has taken a dip. Well, if we're looking at market benchmarks, this can look kind of like an ugly conversation. If we say, this is money that we're going to use in 10 years, and think about all of the ups and downs, but the general trend of the market is definitely in your favor. So when we marry the performance to the person's goals, it also, of course, becomes that much more personal. Now, if you think about an annual review, it's annual. And, and it's almost impossible for nothing to have changed in the life of a client. And frequently, major things have changed. They've acquired a grandchild. They've de-acquired a spouse. Major things that will cause us to look at the goals again. And that brings us to the O in the word progress. Opportunities. Opportunities to reallocate. Opportunities to rebalance, sometimes opportunities to shuffle the whole deck and create new goals. Sometimes, because of life's vicissitudes, a goal will no longer be important. So we always want to explore opportunities to reallocate and rebalance. And that can lead to either the reaffirmation of the goals that existed or the creation of new goals. Now, obviously, if we're going to be comprehensive wealth strategists and not people selling a bunch of stuff, then we always have to examine the risks that are inherent to any new decision. So as we explore new goals, we will then look at what risks might be underlying those goals. We then have to examine what existing resources can we apply to the goals. And again, sometimes over the course of the year, they have acquired new resources, and that's a marvelous thing for us to know about as well. Our seventh step is talking to our client about solutions. And sometimes the solutions that we're thinking about require homework on the part of the client, or us bringing in any one of the specialists that we might have talked to the client about previously. So don't worry if the annual review, if we get to step number 7 and another meeting or another phone call or another action step is going to be required. That's absolutely natural and normal. And finally, I mentioned next steps, our final 8th step is to make sure that both you and the client are 100% clear about what those next steps are. Now, having said this, I hope that you can see that in every one of these 8 steps, well, in 7 of the 8 steps, we prepare with ourselves and our team. But in the remaining 7 steps, it is a dialogue. It is an ongoing conversation. It is not an information dump on the part of the advisor.
What a great definable, repeatable, and scalable process.